So welcome back to our next lecture on distributed computing. As discussed in the previous video, we are going to see software architectural styles. So these were the software architectural styles that we had previously seen, and we'll be seeing each one of them in detail. So there are basically 5 categories of distributed systems, and first one is data centered. So giving a brief note, data centered applications means they are basically concentrating on the data. Data flow means they are concentrating on data flow, and so on we can see in detail. So first software architectural style of distributed system is data centered. So these architectures identify alright. So these architectures identify the data as fundamental element of the software. So the fundamental or core part is considered as the data. Integrity of data is overall goal of the system. So integrity of the data, that means we need to prevent corruption of the data and all. We need to protect the data. All that is the overall goal of the system. So even data centered architecture is divided again. The most important architectural style is repository architectural style, and it is characterized by actually 2 components. There's a central data structure and it represents the current state of the system. Then there's a collection of independent components which operate on this central data. So basically there is a central data and there are collection of independent components that operate on this central structure. Now of this repository based architecture, again 2 categories fall. First one is databases, and then comes the Blackboard system. So when we consider a database system, actually it is a distributed system and it fall under the category of data centered software architecture. And what database system have is the dynamics of the system is actually controlled by independent components. So in that system there are independent components, and these components issue an operation on the central repository. So all these independent components will be issuing operation on the central repository, trigger the selection of specific process that operate on the data. For example, if you are on a node and you are requesting for some data, it will be issuing a select query on the existing database that is present at a central repository. The second category is Blackboard system. The Blackboard system, the data is the central data structure is the main trigger for selecting process to execute. So whatever the central data is, that will be impacting what process will be stored. Alright, so you can consider as an example as if data A is present, some particular line of code will be executed. If the data B is present, something else will be present or executed. Now the 3 main components of Blackboard architecture system are knowledge sources. These are the entities that update the knowledge base that is maintained in the Blackboard. So entities that update the knowledge base, that means the source of the information. Then comes the Blackboard. This represents the data structure that is shared among the knowledge sources and store knowledge base of the application. Then comes the control. The control is a collection of triggers and procedures, and these govern the interaction with the Blackboard and update the status of the knowledge base. So control actually govern the interaction. Alright, so 3 main components of Blackboard architecture system: knowledge source, Blackboard and control. Now the second category of this type is data flow architecture. So firstly we had data centered, now we are going to see data flow architecture. Now here the computation is controlled by the availability of the data. Now 2 most common styles are present: batch sequential style and pipe and filter style. So what batch sequential style means is, it is characterized by an ordered sequence of separate programs executing one after the other. So there is a sequence of separate programs that executes one after the other. These programs are chained together by providing as input for the next program the output generated by the last program. That means in a sequential manner it is changed. All the components are changed in a sequential manner. In output of one will be the input for the other. So that is known as a batch sequential style. The design was very popular in the mainframe era of computing, and it still finds applications today. And for example, many distributed applications for scientific computing are defined by jobs. For example, the steps you can see: pre-filter, analyze, and post-process the data. So all these are occurring in a sequence, in a batch fashion. Means firstly pre-filtration will be done, then analysis will be done, then post-processing of the data will be done. All these are done in a batch sequential style. It is very common to compose these phases during batch sequential style. Next, coming on, we have pipe and filter system. Now what pipe and filter system means is, a simple example is the Unix commands, which are separated by pipes. Unix commands, we can merge them actually. Now each component of the processing chain is called a filter, and the connection between one filter and the next is represented by the data stream. With respect to the batch sequential style, data is processed incrementally, and each filter processes the data as soon as it is available on the input stream. As soon as one filter produces a consumable amount of data, next filter can start processing it. Filters generally do not have state, know the identity of neither the previous or next filter, and they are connected with in-memory data structures like first in first out buffers or other data structures. This particular sequencing is known as pipeline, and it introduces concurrency in the execution of the filters. Microprocessor pipeline is an example where multiple instructions are executed at the same time by completing a different phase of each of them. Now we can identify the phases of execution of instructions as filters, and here data streams are represented by registers and they are shared within the processors. Virtual machine architecture is a third type, and it is characterized by presence of an abstract execution environment. So there is an abstract execution environment created, and what this environment does is it simulates the features that are not available in the hardware or software. So your original hardware or software will not be having that particular feature, but by an abstract environment that is created, some features are simulated. Applications and systems are implemented on the top of this layer, and they become portable over different hardware and software environments as long as there is an implementation of virtual machine they interfere with. It means that when you have created an application on top of this particular layer, you can actually port it over other hardwares and softwares also. Now when you can do that, for example, you created an application, an abstract application, an application over an abstract environment on Windows. So if such a similar abstraction handling system is available for Unix, you can operate that particular application in Unix also. So that is the meaning of this particular point. Moving on, the general interaction flow for systems implementing this pattern is the following. So there's a program, defines its operations and states in abstract format, which is interpreted by the virtual machine engine. So there will be a particular program, it will be having operations and states, and they are interpreted by virtual machine engine. The interpretation of a program constitutes its execution. So when you say you are interpreting a program, it means you are executing the particular program. So popular examples within this category. So even under virtual machine architectures, there are 3 subcategories also. First one is rule based, then comes the interpreter, and then comes the command language processor. You can see each one in detail. Rule based style. This architecture is characterized by representing abstract execution environment as an inference engine. So here, our abstract execution environment is a particular inference engine. Programs are expressed in the form of rules or predicates that hold true. The input data for applications is generally represented by a set of assertions or facts. So what is the input of this particular system? It is the set of facts or assertions. I will, alright, I will erase this particular thing. So what is the input here? The input is set of assertions or facts. Input is facts that our inference engine uses to activate rules, and finally they will transform the data. So there will be an input which is a set of facts, rules which apply on these inputs, and finally transform the data. The output can either be a product of the rule activation or a set of assertions that hold true for given input data. So what will be the output? It can be product of the rule or a set of another facts. Again, new facts can be output also. The set of rules or predicates identifies a knowledge base that can be queried to infer properties about the system. So what is a set of rules? These are the knowledge base that are queried to get the properties about the system. And where are these particularly applicable? In the field of artificial intelligence. The next architectural style is interpreter style, and the core feature of interpreter style is that there is a presence of engine that is used to interpret a pseudo program expressed in the format acceptable by the interpreter. So actually there is an interpreter and the input is given in the language that can be understandable by the interpreter. The interpretation of pseudo program constitutes the execution of the program. So even in the previous thing we had seen here, the interpretation of program constitutes its execution. That was in virtual machine architecture. Now in the interpreter style also, interpretation of the pseudo program is similar to execution of the program. Systems modeled according to this style exhibit four main components. There are four main components here. There's interpretation engine, there's an internal memory. Interpretation engine executes the actual code. Then internal memory contains the pseudocode that has to be interpreted. Representation of the current state of engine. Representation of current state of program being executed. So these are the four main components of the systems that are modeled. So if you want to create an interpreter style distributed component, you need to create all these four components. This model is quite useful in designing virtual machines for high-level programming. And the examples of the programming languages are Java, C++, C#, all these. And there are scripting languages like awk, Perl, all these. And for all these, virtual machines are created using this interpreter style logic. Now our next type of architecture is call and return architecture. It's again a top-down style, and the architecture style is quite representative of the systems developed with the imperative programming, and it leads to divide and conquer approach. So that is the main point here. Top-down style is implemented with divide and conquer approach. Systems developed according to this style are composed of one large main program. So basically there will be one large main program, and it accomplishes its tasks by invoking subprograms or procedures. So subprograms and procedures are invoked by one large main program. The components in the style are procedures and subprograms, and connections are method calls or invocation. The calling program passes information with parameters and receives data. This is how simple programming languages works. Method calls can also extend beyond the boundary of single process by leveraging techniques for remote method invocation. So how these method calls are done? Using remote method invocation like RPCs and all its descendants. The overall structure of program execution at any point of time is characterized by a tree. The root constitutes the main function of the programming. principal program. The architectural style is quite intuitive, but it's hard to maintain and manage. So the next architecture of distributed system is object-oriented style. In this, the abstractions by object-oriented programming is used and implemented. So the systems developed using this style are specified in terms of classes and are implemented in terms of objects. Classes define the type of components by specifying the data that represent their state and the operations that can be done over these data. So we need to define what classes are and then what objects are. So object instances become responsible for hiding their internal state representation. Now top-down style is that there is a coupling between data and operations used to manipulate them. So in this style, there is a coupling between the data as well as the operations that manipulate over this data. Now, this top-down style also causes a better decomposition and create more manageable systems. What are the disadvantages of this style? Again, the object needs to know the identity of an object if it wants to invoke the operations. That means if you want to invoke some operation, you should be aware of all the details like the interface, the parameters, all these things should be aware to the object. And shared objects need to be carefully designed in order to ensure the consistency of the state. So this is about object-oriented style. Now one more is present, that is layered style. The layered style system, the design and implementation of software systems in terms of layers. So we have heard about OSI, TCP model and all. So what you can see there is, there are several layers and each layer is having their own functionality. So that itself is understood in the layered style. And each layer has each individual layer has two layers itself. One provides a lower abstraction level and one provides a higher abstraction layer. So each layer itself has again a lower abstraction layer and higher abstraction layer. Now the specific protocols and interfaces define how adjacent layers interact with each other. So each of these layers interact using specific protocols and interfaces. Now it is possible to model such systems as a stack of layers, one for each level of abstraction, as we have discussed already. Now the components are the layers and connectors are the interface. So in the system, what are the components? The different layers. And what are the connectors? The interfaces. Along with the interfaces, one more connector is there, that is the protocols used between the adjacent layers. Now a user or client generally interacts with the layer at the higher abstraction level, which in order to carry its activity interacts and uses the services of the lower level. The process is repeated until the lower layer is reached. So how the user interacts with the highest abstraction layer, then again it will call each and every layer below it. Now what are the advantages of using layered style? It supports modular design of systems. So you can develop one layer, then if you want to create another layer, you can create next one. Now it allows us to decompose the system according to different levels. Same thing. Layers can be replaced as long as they are compliant with the expected protocols and thus making the system flexible. Then what is the disadvantage? Lack of extensibility, since it's not possible to add layers without changing the protocols and interfaces between them. So you cannot add layers in between. How can you only change? Only by changing the protocols and interfaces between the existing layers. So it's a bit difficult to change these things. Now examples are ISO, OSI, TCP IP as already discussed. So these are the examples of layered architecture. Now going back to the image, you can see here which were the software architectural styles. So we have discussed about data centered and there were two repository, Blackboard, then data flow architecture was there. We have seen pipe and filter, batch, sequential. Then virtual machine, in that we have seen rule-based systems and interpreter-based systems. Then call and return we had seen, top-down system we had seen, object-oriented system and layered system what we discussed just now. Then comes independent components, and in that also two different categories are present, communicating systems and event systems. Alright, so we will move to architectural style based on independent components. So here we go. Independent components have their own life cycles. They interact with each other to perform their activities. There are two categories within this class, communicating processes and event systems. So what is a communicating process? In this style, components are represented by independent processes that utilize IPC facilities for coordination management. So using inter-process communication, different components that are represented by independent process communicate with each other. So the component here is again independent process, and our connectors that are the IPC or inter-process communication facilities. Each of the processes provide other processes with services and can leverage services exposed by other processes. The conceptual organization of these processes and the way in which communication happens according to specific model used can be either peer-to-peer or client-server. Peer-to-peer you mean that single device communicating with another, and client-to-server means there's a single client and there are multiple clients and single server who is handling all the requests. Then again the same step that we discussed, connectors are IPC facilities, that are inter-process communication facilities that are used to communicate. Finally, we have our last type of system, that is event system, and this is also part of independent component. Now here components of the system are loosely coupled and connected. Each component exposes operations for data and state manipulation and a collection of events with which other components can actually register. So there's particular component, it has data and state manipulation and events, and to each events different other components can actually communicate. Now event activation may be accompanied by contextual information, and about this information that is present with each event, this information can be actually passed as an argument to the callback function or by using some shared repository between the components. Then event-based systems can be present at the API level or programming language level. So in different levels actually you can develop these systems either as interfaces or at the programming language level. So this was about the architecture styles of distributed systems. We have another architectural style for distributed system, that is system architectural style, and we will be discussing it along with communication methods in our next class. Thank you.